Chapter 5. Fishbait. Jack hasn't slept well in 4 nights now. He's been back to the downstairs apartment dozens of times, at all hours of the day and night, checking the bag in the closet, still hoping that it might magically disappear. He knows that's impossible, but it doesn't stop his wishful thinking. Maybe the whole thing was just a bad dream. But it wasn't. It is always still there, crumpled in the back of the closet. No smell yet, and it has been 4 days, now. All is well, only the faint smell of the flakes is issuing from underneath the closet door. So far, so good, he thinks to himself, but he knows it can't continue. He can't just leave the corpse in that closet forever. But, what to do with it, that is the question. Just dump it on the street? How would he even get it down the stairs without being seen? It was enough trouble just dragging it from the kitchen to the bedroom. Besides, even if he can dump it, as soon as the body is found, surely a police investigation will follow. Can they trace anything back to him, or the old lady? He has seen a lot of TV crime shows, and the investigations now look pretty sophisticated, so, who knows? Probably a good chance they can, or so he thinks. Jack arises from the sofa, as the sunshine streams in through the window. This night was a little better than usual. He got about 4 hours sleep, 2 hours more than the last 2 nights. It is now 8 o'clock. The bedroom door is still closed, she isn't up yet. Mrs. Murray is another problem. He certainly can't let her stay with him indefinitely, and he knows that she isn't going back downstairs while the body is still there. He dresses and walks down to the front of the building, again checking the closet on the way. The weather is warm, and the breeze is light. He sits on the bench and lights his usual daily cigar. "So, this where you guys hang out," announces Petey as he approaches. "Hey, Petey." "Yeah, this is it. Sit down." Jack points to his shirt pocket. "Do you smoke? I got an extra one right here." "Nah. Thanks anyway, but I gave up smoking when cigarettes were 35 cents a pack. I know if I smoke a cigar, I'll be right back. I used to do a pack and a half a day. I don't want to take a chance if you know what I mean." "Sure, I understand," agrees Jack. "Hey, how did you like that bocce?" "Pretty good, a lot of fun. Want to play tomorrow? I'll get Hal." "I'd like to, but I'm going fishing." "Did you ever fish?" "When I was a kid, not since then," answers Jack. "Did you like it?" "Yeah, it was fun, nice and relaxing, quiet. I'd even say serene." "So, do you want to go tomorrow?" Petey asks. "I'd need equipment and a license." "I'm sure you need a license, when I was a kid you did." "No, not where I'm going," Petey explains. "I'm going to a friend of mine's place, upstate. I was in the service with him and we've kept in touch for years. When he got out, he bought a farm, a fish farm. He raises trout and sells them. He has a big pond, I guess you could almost call it a lake. He stocks fish in there and charges people to fish. You don't need a license because it's not public waters. And he supplies the rod, the reel, and all the fishing stuff too." "How much does it cost?" "For me and you, free. I've known Larry for 30 years, I just bring him a case of beer. What do you think?" "Is Hal going?" asks Jack. "Can't, he's got some stuff he's got to do." "Well, it sounds like a good time, I'll be like a kid again." "Sure, sign me up, I'll go." "What time?" "I'll pick you up at about 8:30, it'll take around an hour to get there. Just gotta hope for good weather, it's supposed to be nice. Bring a couple of extra cigars," Petey concludes. Larry's a cigar guy. When Petey leaves, Jack goes back upstairs, stopping to check the closet on the way. The next morning, the horn blows at 8:30 sharp. It is attached to an old, beat-up jalopy, about a 92, with a missing hubcap, and a dent in the front fender. The interior is just as dilapidated, the seats are torn and coffee-stained. The back seat is covered with piles of old, faded newspapers, used plastic cups, and sundry pieces of old, ripped clothing. Jack opens the door, and Petey points to the newspapers lying on the passenger's seat. "Throw those papers in the back with the rest, and hop in." Jack picks up the newspapers and throws them on top of the piles in the back seat, then slides into the passenger's seat. "What's all that shit in the back, there?" "I gotta get to cleaning it up, but I can't seem to do it." "How's that?" asks Jack. "I guess it's the way I was raised. My mother came straight out of the Depression. They never threw anything away and I suppose it just rubbed off on me. But I'll get to it someday. Anyway, I got the beer in the trunk." "Away we go," Petey adds. "Where'd you get this, Petey?" "My daughter's kid, my granddaughter. She went to college in it, then, when she graduated, like all the kids today, the first thing she does is get a new car. So, I got this. Looks like shit, but runs good. Good for around here, too. I mean, who's gonna steal it? They ride for about an hour. The car radio doesn't work, and idle banter flows back and forth for the entire trip. After a while, a faded billboard appears in the distance. Larry's Fishin' Hole, no license required. Petey turns down the long, dusty, rutted road, by the sign, and they bounce their way down the lane, towards the dilapidated house at the end of it. Another sign by the house reads, "You are at Larry's, fish are there." A big, red arrow is pointing towards the lake at the back. Petey pulls up in front of the rundown house, and they get out. The front door opens, and out steps an unshaven Larry. His upper lip is covered with an unkempt mustache, and he is sporting gray stubble across a square chin. His smile makes it apparent that most of his teeth are missing, except for a few uppers and lowers in the front. "What do we got here? Two Fishin' City slickers?" He jests, while grasping Petey's hand. Larry speaks in a soft, gravelly, drawn-out, stage-whispering voice as if he has to pry every word, one at a time, from his throat. His voice's pattern and tone give an air of creepiness to everything he says, no matter how mundane it might be. "How you been, Petey?" he asks. "You look okay. Ain't seen you since last year." "Doing good, Larry, doing good. This is Jack, a buddy of mine, from around the corner." Jack reaches out and shakes Larry's burly, calloused hand. "Got the beer?" Larry checks. "Sure." Petey answers quickly, "In the trunk, with a bag of ice on it, like usual." He gets the beer and they all go inside. The house is a shack, consisting of 3 rooms. The living room, in which they are now seated, houses 2 old, overstuffed chairs and a sofa, all of which are covered with dog hair. A crack in the ceiling is covered with duct tape, and several pieces of flypaper hang from it, looking as if they might fall at any moment, under the weight of the insects entangled. The floor is covered with faded, worn linoleum, and a small kerosene heater is mounted against one wall. Off to the side is a dingy kitchen, its sink piled high with dirty dishes. "Rusty, get the fuck off the sofa," Larry orders. Startled by the command, the red scruffy mongrel jumps from the stain-covered sofa and scurries to a pillow in the corner of the room. "Grab one of the beers and sit down. Let's talk a bit, and then we'll get to some fishin'." Larry pops open the beer can, adding in his gravelly voice, "How's things down by you? Just as shitty as here, I suppose." "Probably worse," answers Jack. "At least here you don't have street gangs." "Street gangs? We don't even have streets," Larry replies, with a laugh, as he reaches for another beer. "So, what's with these gangs?" Petey silently glances at Jack. "Go ahead, Petey, tell him what happened to you the other day, down at the bank." Hesitatingly, Petey begins the story of how he was forced to pay the fireman, and how the entire neighborhood is slowly being overrun by the young thugs. "That's some shit," Larry responds, with disgust. "How do you let him get away with that? Maybe you gotta get yourself a gun. I got one right here, I'll loan ya." He points to a 12 gauge, standing in the far corner. "I know you're pretty good with it, Petey. I saw you in Nam, shooting them gooks like tin cans off a fence post. You know how to handle yourself." He stands up, goes to the corner, and gets the gun, which he brings over and hands to Petey. "What about you, Jack?" he offers. "I got one you can use too, if you want it." "It's not that simple, Larry," replies Jack. "There's dozens of them, and they pretty much run the neighborhood. You can't just go around shooting them. If you threaten them, you're going to have to lock every door, every window, and never leave the house, or you'll be a dead man. There's not too much you can do with or without a gun." "I suppose you're right. But, myself, I couldn't be living that way. I'd have to fight back, somehow. Living in fear all the time, and kissing these bastards' asses, ain't no way to live. Not for me, anyway." Larry chides, "Knowing you the way I do, Petey, I'm kinda surprised that you're taking all this shit lying down. I remember you being an awful lot tougher than that." "Sure, Larry," snaps Petey, "I was an awful lot younger too. Ain't no excuse. Just because you got older, don't mean you gotta suck down all that shit and live in fear all the time. Well, you guys think about it, if you want those guns, they're right here for yos. And, if you need my help, I'll even come down and give you a hand at teaching these pricks a lesson, just give me a call." With that, Larry pulls a cigarette out of his shirt pocket and lights up. "Now, let's do some fishing, grab those poles over there," he concludes. They leave the house and walk to the lake, passing several large ponds which are teeming with fish. With every step they take, the fish hurry to the bank alongside them. "Look at these guys," Jack comments as they walk. "They look like piranha without the teeth. There's hundreds of them." They think they're getting fed, Larry explains. Every time you come near the pond, they think it's dinner time. What do you feed them? Used to be liver, but that got kinda expensive and messy, so, now I use commercial food, dried stuff. It's a lot cleaner and cheaper. But they'll eat anything you throw in there. With that, Larry throws his cigarette butt into the pond. The water starts to churn, as dozens of fish rush toward the tasty morsel and instantly devour it. See what I mean? He points to a roadway, branching to the left. Here, we gotta go this way. Jack points out a series of small holes, burrowed into the bank, on the other side of the pond. What are all those holes over there? Rats. Rats? Yeah, there are lots of rats living by the ponds. They survive on the food that lands on the bank when I feed the fish. If I come back an hour later, there ain't a scrap nowhere. The rats get it all clean as could be. They walk toward another pond, and Larry points out a diverging path, then a chipper alongside a pile of wood chips. It's shorter the other way, but I got all my equipment blocking the other road. I'm trying to clean the brush away from the bank over there, so there's more fishing room. That reminds me, I gotta call Ted. Whenever I get a big pile, he comes down and picks them up. What's he do with them? Asks Petey. Don't know, really, landscaping, I think. I know his son's in that business. I don't really care what he does with them, as long as he gets them out of here. Why don't you feed them to the fish? Jack adds, with a laugh. Don't you think I haven't thought about it? Replies Larry, with a grin. The ride home from Larry sure seems longer than the ride up. All in all, it was a great day. Jack caught 7 fish and Petey 6. They are now in the trunk, packed in the ice they brought up with the beer. Wonder if I remember how to cook them, Jack comments. Nothing to it, replies Petey. Larry already cleaned and filleted them for us. All you gotta do is put some butter in the pan and fry 'em up, and there you have it, a great fish dinner. Yeah, Larry was a cool guy, Jack comments, kinda rustic, but cool. Sure is, he'd do anything to help you. You know, when he was talking about the guns, and coming down to help out, he wasn't just shitting, he'd do it. I was with him in Nam. One time he got into it with 3 guys, they beat the living shit out of him. 2 days later, he was back with a bat, he took on all 3 again, and this time gave all 3 a good old ass kickin'. Larry never was into taking a lot of shit from anybody, he didn't care who, what or where, he wasn't about to suck it down, and he hasn't changed a bit. What's with that big fucking scar on his cheek? He got shot by a Kong, right through the cheek. The bullet went in one side and out the other, blasting out most of his back teeth on the way through. The way he tells it, he just spat him out and kept on shooting. Knowing Larry the way I do, is most probably true, Petey says with certainty. The sun is just going down when they arrive home. As Petey drops Jack off in front of his apartment, there is a small crowd, milling around outside the building. A cop car and an ambulance are sitting across the street, their lights flashing. Jack's heart sinks. Somebody probably died, Petey remarks, and they're probably picking up the body. When you got a load of old people living here, you gotta expect it, happens all the time. Jack stares straight ahead, at the scene before him, he barely hears Petey's comment. Jesus Christ. I bet they found the bag. Panic flashes through his mind, as he gets out of the car. Jack, here's Larry's phone number, Petey reminds him, you asked me for it, before. As Petey hands him a scrap of paper, Jack stuffs it into his pocket, closing the car's door. Yeah, thanks, Petey, he replies, in a hollow, entrancing voice, still staring at the crowd in front of his building. Jack, get your fish out of the trunk. Petey pops the deck lid. Oh, yeah, sure, Jack says, in a slow, distracted monotone. Thanks. He walks to the rear of the car, in a zombie-like fashion, still staring, while straining to see if the lights are on in Mrs. Murray's apartment. He takes out the fish and walks slowly towards the building. What's going on? He asks one of the bystanders. I think it's an old lady. What about the old lady? I think she had a heart attack, they found her in the hallway. Here, they're bringing her out now. 2 men are carefully carrying a gurney, bearing Mrs. Murray, down the stairs and out of the front doorway. Jack goes over to the ambulance and awaits their arrival. Mrs. Murray, what happened? He asks her as they start to put her into the ambulance. I don't know, Jack, I just passed out, and the next thing I knew, these men were here. They said I had a heart attack, but I don't really remember. Excuse me, sir, we've got to get her to the hospital. The EMTs slide the gurney into the back of the vehicle. How is she? Jack asks anxiously. We think she's going to be okay, replies one of the men, but that's for the doctors to decide. And, with that, they shut the ambulance door and drive away. Thank God. He mutters to himself and sighing in relief. Of course, he doesn't want to see the old lady had suffered a heart attack, but that is certainly better than the body having been found. He has to get rid of it. Another incident like this and he'll be having a heart attack himself.